I'm here with Donncha of TG Clare fame. We just after watching Tipperary and Limerick draw 25 points apiece. What's your initial reaction to that game? It was a bit of a cracker.
Well, I was at Limerick Clare a couple of weeks ago. I thought that was great. And first half I said here, you're comparing. I said first half was good, maybe a little missing, but the second half was terrific. It was terrific. When you're here as a neutral, you see a full game.
Yeah.
When you're on to counties playing, you see half a game, but you see a full game here. It was terrific and a fair result.
Yeah, like I would have said that the big thing here that changed from previous meetings of these two teams was that Tipperary were able to absorb the third quarter rush that Limerick had. So there was the 16-point turnaround a couple of years ago. Even the league semi-final recently, it was like 110 to a point or 2 points. This time Limerick actually had an awful lot of chances in that third quarter, but there was a run where they only scored 1 out of 11 shots. So Tipperary found a way to stem the tide. What would you put that down to?
Two things. I think Limerick are slipping. They're like the reminder of the boxer on the ropes. They're still very good, but they're not as good as they were. They had a lot of uncharacteristic wides today. You brought in subs that made a big difference. Conor Bowe made it. I think he got 3 points.
3, yeah.
Seamus Callan. You punished mistakes. They had chance. When they came with 4 points, you were saying, "Oh God, here it comes again. Here it comes again." But you held out. Cathal Barrett made an absolute. He was lying on the ground. It was miraculous. The tackle he made to prevent a certain goal, and stuff like that. Your big men stood up. Your bench were very effective, and it was very fair. And when John McGrath was taking the free at the end, I was saying, "Jesus, you're 2 free takers. First choice and second choice not there." John missed one against Cork, but fair play to him, he stuck it.
Yeah, Graham Mulcahy, what an impact for the bench from him as well, because like you mentioned, some of the key men aren't really firing. Keane Lynch doesn't seem right. Gerard Hegarty's, very off colour, and Dan McCormick won that battle hands down. But geez, the likes of Graham Mulcahy coming in, Tom Morrissey, Cathal O'Neill with 5 points.
Well, but for Morrissey and O'Neill, really, Gillan to a lesser extent, but for those two, they were in trouble because Seamus Flanagan wasn't firing either. Got 1 great point here, but balls were going into Flanagan. Normally, when they go into Flanagan, they stick, but they weren't sticking today. He was dropping balls, they were making mistakes. Even Dermot Burns with a great game. He made a fairly basic error for Seamus Callan's point. But you see, look, sometimes, Shane, we expect too much, maybe it's perfection. Sometimes mistakes help make a game,
In terms of the physicality, it just feels like hurling is, and especially the games involved in Limerick, because teams have to lift their physicality to match them. It feels like it's just getting to another level all the time.
Well, particularly in Munster, where they're killing one another. Meanwhile, they're laughing and Leinster slipping through. What a result today, by the way, for Westmeath. It's incredible. And the ramifications for Wexford are horrendous.
Yeah, if Antrim beat Westmeath and if Kilkenny don't, or as long as they avoid defeat against Wexford are in relegation.
Yeah, which is
incredible.
It's incredible.
Yeah, truly. And in terms of how this sets Tipperary up for the year and Limerick up for the year, where do you see them in terms of the pecking order for All Ireland? Limerick still have to go to Cork and win because a draw will see them out.
Well, it's in Limerick, which is in their favour, but I think Cork's pace will bother them. I think your pace bothered them at different times today, and I think Cork's pace will bother them now. Both teams had a really difficult game today because that was a tough game in Ennis as well.
Yeah.
Cork are still making a lot of elementary mistakes in defence, particularly, and a lot of actually I thought that was a feature of the game in Ennis, that both teams, a lot of the scores came as a result of fairly basic mistakes, more so than here. So it's a Munster semi-final. It's like the old days, the knockout Munster semi-final.
Yeah, which is brilliant. Do you know, I thought it was interesting that Liam Cahill made 4 changes. Like he changed the goalkeeper. Nobody really saw that coming. He brought in Owen Connolly. He brought in Mark Keogh. Obviously, he had to bring him in because Jason Ford was injured. And he also brought in Bonner Maher, who'd had a bad league semi-final against Limerick. And to be fair, he did quite well here today. So brave in terms of management.
It was, and there was a specific role, I think, looking at hard to judge sometimes, but I think one of us to kind of keep Barry Nash quiet, which I thought he did very well. And there was one particular time, I think it was the second half, where Dan Morrissey dispossessed him superbly, but he followed up and he dispossessed Dan, won a free, which went over the bar. These are the small things, that win games.
And I have to say, for Limerick, they were 2 points down the 66th minute, got the red card a couple of minutes later, but in between that, they managed to get themselves ahead. They really are cool under pressure. We've seen that in big games against Clare last year here in the Munster final. We saw it in the All-Ireland semi-final and final against Galway and Kilkenny. They're not going to go down easy.
They're not. No, but they should be. They're going for they're 4 All-Irelands, 1 in 5 years. So, they should be that level. But I really think that they're like a team. And look, in hindsight is great, of course, but when you saw it against Waterford here, they kind of struggled to put away Waterford. They lost to Clare, and today just some of their key men are not firing on all cylinders. They're still a very good team. But it's fun, isn't it funny? After the league final, we all thought we're all playing for second place. But it's all changed now.
And so, watching Cork and Clare today, what were your thoughts on that game? Clare came out on top. They're guaranteed progression anyway, and they're into the Munster final.
Clare are still going well, but Clare are susceptible to pace, and Clare better have novenas that John Conlon doesn't get injured. And
Conor Cleary looks like he's out for the year now with the way he was holding his shoulder.
Yeah, so which means David McInerney probably have to go back there as a full back. And David has been hurling well, but hurling supreme well in the half back line. A lot of their stuff was based on the half back line of Ryan Conlon and David McInerney, and that'll weaken it. Now Paul Flanagan will come in. Paul Flanagan was so good last year, that he's a good man to bring in. But when you lose a key player, it's a central player. It's a huge loss.
Look at their All-Ireland semi-final last year, lost Conlon, and the thing just fell apart.
It fell apart.
Yeah. And Tony Kelly, that goal, I mean, high ball in, it broke down, the Red Sea seemed to part, came in, little flick, and tapped to the net. The composure of the man is just, like, he has everything else, but the composure as well is what separates the great ones.
There are some players, and we're privileged to see them. TJ Reid is one, Tony Kelly is one. The guys who are playing now, there are others, but I mean, particularly when I think of those two, anytime I get to see them. Keane Lynch, very poor today. Keane Lynch got blocked today 3 or 4 times. Keane Lynch never got blocked in his life, but he got blocked today. Either he's injured or he's off form. And I made the comment, commentating on the game for radio. Garrett Hegarty, twice hurler of the year taken off. Keane Lynch, twice hurler of the year, 3 hurlers of the year in 2 taken off, So, and their bench wasn't as effective apart from Graham. Graham was very effective today, but they are definitely slipping. And whereas you would have said a couple of weeks ago that they would take care of Cork in Park in Limerick, maybe not now.
Nothing's guaranteed. And then I suppose, like Patrick Horgan, he seemed to be having a bit of an off day. He started okay, having a bit of an off day, missed a few 65s. Then, strangely poor penalty, the way he struck it. It kind of bounced around 12 yards out, even though he was bounced about 10 yards after the strike. Not a great strike for his goal later on, but it managed to go into the net. And yet, they could have won that game and ended up losing it by a point, even though they were 8 behind in the second half.
Every time I looked at that goal, I only showed it 3 or 4 times. I said, did he need it or did he not? It's hard to know.
Yeah.
He could have disguised the shot. He would have. I'd say Eber would be disappointed he didn't stop it. But it was a key score. They got back, and I think the way they were going, bothering Clare, that had they come back, had it gone on another 5 minutes, they might have sneaked it.
Yeah, and I found it so there was players on both sides who go through patches of playing well and not so well during the match. I thought it was strange when Seamus Harnedy and Patrick Horgan said the ball wasn't sticking, and you can understand leaving on Horgan for frees and all that kind of stuff, and obviously he's class anyway, but Harnedy just wasn't moving well. They took off the likes of Dalton, and I just thought it was strange to leave him in there. I thought that was a bit of a miscalculation. He's a great player, but it just wasn't happening for him.
It wasn't happening for him, but I'd say in the past there have been times where Harnedy has been, even on bad days, he has given leadership to Cork. And that has been one of their problems in the last couple of years. Now I think they're getting it right now, that they have been short leadership, but Harnedy has quite often given the leadership. Yeah. Even on days they lost, he has stood up, and maybe on those grounds. But Cork are still a bit to go. Yeah. There's a bit to go,
And who's going to be your Munster winner from here?
It's really hard to say. I'm something to maybe Clare. 25 years since they won it the last time. Maybe Clare, but I wouldn't put a cent on them.
Yeah, and Waterford then. How would you sum that up for the year?
Just a horrible year, basically. Combination of things. Losing Tide was a big blow. Tide de Burke, because he was so good at what he did. A lot of the hurling is far too structured, and some of the players are not really playing as well as they have, and they're not as bad as they have shown, but it has been an awful year, and they're lucky they're not in Leinster.
Thanks very much for that.
No bother.